What is up, my ducks and drakes? Welcome to the Crowded Lake. Today we are reading New Rules by Bekka911, chapters 13 and 14. This is a Saner Sides fanfic. If you'd like to support the author or their works, you could go into the description below to check out their Wattpad and the fic itself. You could also go to the Google form in the description below to recommend fics for the future. It could be by any author, for any fandom, and it does not have to be just on Wattpad. It could be on Tumblr or AO3 or fanfiction.net or wherever you find your fanfiction. As long as it's generally within the range of PG-13 to whatever step is above that, but not completely rated R, it should be good. So, chapter 13. Patton's room smells like oranges, and the smell was sweet as Logan shuffled through the doorway, his entire body clunking and rustling. "This is ridiculous," he muttered to himself, feeling embarrassed. "Patton?" "Well, shucks, Logan, you're in my room." Patton appeared with a self-pop, grinning. Logan huffed. "Yes, I am. I require your assistance." Patton laughed slightly as Logan attempted to shift his glasses. He failed horribly. "You're stuck like that, aren't you?" the parental side guessed, amused. Logan nodded in defeat. "And you want me to help?" "If you would be so kind as to offer your assistance, I would not turn you away." Logan sat on Patton's bed, his earlier rush of warm, unfamiliar but not wholly unpleasant feelings gone. Instead, he was swamped by frustration and embarrassment. "What am I doing wrong?" he asked. "Roman told me to focus on being myself, but it is not having the desired effect." Patton frowned for a moment. "Well, what part of yourself are you focusing on? If you cut out certain things, then you're shutting out parts of yourself, so it won't work." Logan took a deep breath and tried again. He welcomed the cold, pure logic. He pictured his necktie, and his face, and his hair, and Thomas's, and his duties, and everything he was. When he opened his eyes, though, he was still the puppet. Was it his fate to be stuck like this forever? "Talk me through what you're doing," Patton instructed gently, sitting beside Logan on the bed. They didn't touch, but there was a sense of comfort anyway. Logan gestured helplessly. "I'm just trying to focus on myself. It's not working." "What specific parts are you focusing on?" And so Logan informed him, and then tried again to emphasize his point. "This is hopeless," he declared, feeling oddly upset by the notion. "Creativity is not my strongest aspect. Logically, I'm doing everything I've been instructed to, and I'm still stuck like this." "I know what you're doing wrong." Patton's voice was sure, and sunny and soft and understanding. "Logan, you still have emotions. We all know that you're not a machine, despite what you seem to think. You feel things." "I fail to see where you're going with this." "Well," Patton gave him a gentle smile, "you're focusing on all the mechanical aspects of yourself. What you look like, what you do within Thomas, how you act. What you aren't focusing on is how you feel. Happiness, sadness, anger, guilt." Logan let out a long, heavy breath. "Focusing in these emotions, that'll change me back?" Patton shrugged. "Find out for yourself." Reluctantly, Logan closed his eyes again and took a deep breath, savoring the smell of oranges. It calmed him, somehow, centered him and grounded him and cleared his mind. Drawing a conclusion from Patton's words, he searched in the darkness and found something unfamiliar. It was like he was standing in front of a wall of glass, and he thought he knew it. Beyond the glass there were swirling colors, purple, pink, orange, gold, black, blue. He knew this wall. He'd built this wall. He'd shoved everything he didn't understand beyond this wall and then kept it out. These were his emotions, locked away because he didn't understand them. This was the part of himself he had to focus on and accept to change back. You are not a machine. This realization shot through him like an electric current, and he bit his lip. Staring at the wall, the glowing barrier, he made up his mind and flung out his arms. It was like a dam breaking. One crack, followed by another, started spiderwebbing across the glass. A hollow scratching noise filled his ears, and he watched as the glass fractured further and further until finally the wall shattered, and the colors filled that darkness. Bright and bright and brighter. There, Patton said warmly, and Logan opened his eyes. He pressed a very normal hand to his chest in wonder as a warmth filled his heart. All the emotions he'd repressed over time flooded through him. Fascinating, he breathed. Patton hummed slightly, tilting his head. There was something vulnerable on his face. I guess you're a real boy now. Real boy. That has been his dream. Be a real boy. Logan stared at his fellow's side with wide eyes, feeling almost overwhelmed by everything. It happened too fast, too unfamiliar, too much. I'm not... Patton just shrugged again and stood up, smiling brightly. One dream down, millions more to go. Chapter 14. It took Logan just over 2 days to decide how to apologize to Virgil and begin the path to friendship. They had reached an understanding once before, but the numerous situations that had arisen had erased any progress they'd made. Logan regretted it, losing that balance between them. He just had to take the steps to build it up again. He went to Roman first, because despite Logan's emotional development, he wasn't creatively and required help. He described what he needed swiftly, in detail, and Roman offered him a rare smile before molding creative energy to craft the item Logan required. Logan thanked him and turned to leave, object in hand, when Roman said, I owe you an apology. Logan frowned slightly. What for? You never ridiculed me during my situation with Dylan, Roman said, and his voice was tight with shame and guilt. You tried to help, and I repaid you by blindly insulting you with nicknames that I should have known would have hurt you. Roman. I should have learned after Virgil's, the depression, but I didn't. I held onto the false sense of superiority I had, and for that, I am sorry. Logan adjusted his glasses and allowed himself to smile, a forgiving smile. Some of that guilt left Roman's face. I harbor no ill feelings towards you, Logan said quietly. I have made my fair share of mistakes. I handled Virgil's situation poorly, and that has tarnished things between us. But my actions came from unrestrained emotion and lack of knowledge. Your actions were the same. I refuse to be a hypocrite. But nothing, Logan said firmly. You and I have created our own compromise. All is forgiven. Roman nodded. Then I bid you farewell, he said. I hope that you and Virgil can make amends too. Logan nodded back and walked away, tightening his grip on the object in his hand. He hadn't realized how much he'd needed those words from Roman, how much the nicknames and snide comments had been festering inside him like an infected wound. He'd believed he'd merely let them slide off him, but he hadn't. He'd held on to them, and now he could let them go. He'd already forgiven Roman. Maybe he could start forgiving himself, too. He didn't go to Virgil's room. One, because he'd hated the helpless panic that had overtaken him when Virgil had ducked out and they ventured after him. too, because he'd already asked Patton to get anxiety to Logan's room, so there was no point in going to Virgil's room anyway. He took a moment to breathe, swallowing down his sudden, sweet, irrational nerves. He knew that if Virgil didn't accept the gift and apology, then nothing would change between them, and it wouldn't be the end of the world. But part of Logan was still desperate to fix his mistakes. He opened his door. Virgil was lounging on Logan's bed, talking to Patton. The two of them were laughing and using big hand gestures. Logan felt awkward for intruding. "Virgil?" he greeted politely. "Patton?" Patton grinned at him widely. "Logan!" Virgil just appraised him coolly. "Nice to see you back to normal," he said, and Logan ducked his head slightly. "I assume you have me here for a reason?" Fine. Logan deserved the animosity. He'd been the instigator for Derek, and the whole messy, complicated situation, he could handle it. "I will not pretend to understand what your relationship with Derek was like," he began, and Virgil stiffened. "I will not pretend to understand your struggles. What I can say is that I take responsibility for my actions, and I accept my role as antagonist in your story." Virgil stared at him for a while, and Logan fought the urge to fidget under his heavy gaze. "Right," Virgil said slowly. Logan, sensing that he was losing the battle, decided to change tactics. "Here," he said, holding his hand out. Virgil reaches for the object, looking up at Logan quizzically. I know that you're fond of fidget cubes and such, as they distract you and calm you down. I also recognize your fondness of Rubik's Cubes and your frustration with not being able to solve them." Virgil flushed slightly. "I asked Roman to make this for you. And this is?" "Well, I simply combined the two." Logan cleared his throat. "The buttons are colored on each side of the cube. When will light up, you must figure out which color comes next in the sequence, and continue until all the buttons are lit. Once you have completed it, it will automatically rearrange itself, and you may do the process again. It should be an entertaining activity while you also distracting yourself and calming you down." Virgil pressed a random button, watching with wide eyes as the button glowed blue. He pressed another button, which flickered before the sequence started again. Quickly, he found the next button in the sequence, which, in turn, lit up a bright green. Thank you," he said, a little breathlessly. This is kinda cool." Logan took a steady breath, finding comfort in Patton's small smile of encouragement. "I also owe you an explanation." An explanation, not an apology. Logan had attempted an apology, and it had only made things worse. He was not built for apologies, and found it hard to swallow his pride. What he could do, however, was explain. And so explain he did. He settled into his desk chair and told Virgil everything he'd once told Patton. He admitted to his fear, his out-of-control emotions. He talked Virgil through all of it. And then he held his hand out. "You do not owe me your forgiveness," he said, very quietly, "but I would appreciate it." He simply didn't know what to do with himself when Virgil grabbed his hand, not for a handshake, but to pull him out of his chair and into an embrace. "Of course, I forgive you," Virgil muttered, voice thick with emotion. "And I'm glad you've forgiven yourself at last." Logan hesitantly wrapped his arms around Virgil. He said nothing, but when Virgil stepped back, cheeks slightly pink, his eyes said it all anyway. Logan chose not to comment on the proud tears in Patton's eyes as the other side stood up and grabbed both Logan and Virgil's hands, pulling them out into the hallway. "I'm proud of you," he whispered to Logan. Logan only glanced over at Virgil. He was smiling freely. That night at dinner, everybody was laughing. Logan was finally at peace with himself. thank you all so much for listening. If you'd like to hear more, feel free to subscribe and hit that bell so you could be in the works, in the tunes for next week's episode, which will be the 4th book in the series, which is Patton's book, which you didn't hear this from me, but is my personal favorite of the 5 books. I love Patton's story so much. Oh my god. So yeah, I'm so excited to read that next week. I especially love doing Patton's voice because it's very high and like childish, but also meaningful and down to earth. I don't know. Those are my excited noises. Once again, thank you all so much for listening, and much like Logan trying to explain to Virgil what he did, do your best.